Hey babes, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Mira B. If you're not, then welcome back to my channel. Here today on this video, we are going to be meal prepping some high protein, low calorie meals. We're going to be making some Greek meatballs paired with cucumber salad and low carb pita bread. Also, we'll be making some Philly cheesesteak cheese bowls, and we're going to be pairing that with some high protein noodles. So we're going to go ahead and get into today's meal and go ahead and start the meal prep. I already cut up everything far as my onions, my parsley, and my mint. I am also going to go ahead and go over the list of what you would need to create this specific meal. So for the Greek meatballs, you would need your low calorie pita bread, which I purchased the Joseph's brand, and this has 35 calories in it, 3 grams of protein, and the carbs is only 6. So this is a really healthy option, and everything listed will be on the video screen and also in the caption if you missed it all or if I'm talking too fast. Also, for your grocery list, you would need ground turkey, beef, or pork, whatever meat that you would like to use for your base. You will also need 1 onion, green peppers. Oops, I'm sorry, y'all. Why am I telling y'all the recipe for the Philly cheesesteak bowl? Scratch that. Let's go over it again. You would need 1 onion, your meat of choice. You would need a garlic clove, panko breadcrumbs, which I also have. I have the plain ones. I do not get the seasoned ones because I'm also going to be using my specific seasons that I have to the side. You're going to need fresh parsley, fresh mint, oregano, and a tzatziki sauce because there's not going to be a sauce placed on the meatballs, and you will want a sauce with it on the side, and that's what brings the meal together. And also your low carb pita bread. So let's go ahead and get into this meal prep and get started on it.
So I started off by cracking 1 egg into the ground turkey, and I ended up getting some of the shell inside of the mix. And I don't know if you know that if you use the shell, it will also gravitate and pull it out. Then I added in my mint and I was mixing it, and I added in my red onions. And y'all, at this point I realized that I might want to grab a bigger bowl to mix this in because it's not working out. So in a minute you'll see me grab a bigger bowl after I add in the parsley and realize that it's too much in that small bowl. I really was just using a clear bowl so that you guys can see it clear through, but I ended up having to change the bowl and just change the angle. I also added in my garlic. The garlic definitely helps pull out the flavor and makes the meatballs taste very fresh. Now I went ahead and added in my 1 cup of panko breadcrumbs. I used the plain seasoning ones, non-seasoning ones, excuse me, simply because I added my own Greek seasoning. I added in my garlic powder. I also used some black pepper and a little bit of Creole seasoning. Also, I use Italian season because it did call for oregano, and I didn't have any oregano, so I had to pivot and use some Italian season. I personally like cracked pepper versus regular pepper that just comes in a little sprinkler. So I use cracked pepper to pull out the spice in the meatballs. And again, this is all preference on how you like to season your food, but I highly recommend using a Greek seasoning. That definitely, sealed the deal with the taste of it. So after I put in my seasonings, I did go back in and add a little bit more of the garlic powder, and also I believe maybe the Greek seasoning and the Creole seasoning, just because I just felt like it needed a little bit more. And then I gave it a really, really good mix. Now here's the thing. You want to mix it really, really good, and after you mix it really, really good, Prepare to sit this in the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes to 1 hour. I do recommend doing the full hour if you're using ground turkey. This helps the meat and the seasoning and everything settle, and also it helps with formulating the meatballs and the meatballs staying together better. Now, I tested out this theory and to see if it really worked, and it really does work, because I tried to form a meatball and cook it, and it literally turned into ground turkey as soon as I picked it up. It started crumbling apart. So I definitely recommend, at least letting it sit for 30 minutes, but if you can, the full hour. After letting my meatballs sit for 1 hour, I pulled out my scale and I was ready to go ahead and weigh my meatballs. I tried to aim for 2 ounces. So each meatball was approximately 2 ounces, which gives me 4 ounces of meat. And also, I put it in flour and just rolled it in the flour just to help again with it sticking. Something about ground turkey, it takes a little bit more for it to stick than ground beef. Why? I don't know, but yeah, so that's what I did. And then I just rolled them up into balls. Now some of my meatballs were a little bit under. I was only able to get like literally a few of them to be exactly 2 ounces. So some of them were 1.8, 1.9, which is okay with me. A little bit under the serving size, but for the most part, I was able to get that at a decent amount of protein. I know some people like to cook their meatballs in the oven versus the stovetop. I personally like to put them in a cast iron skillet and cook them on my stovetop, just because I like a little crust on top of my meatballs, and I feel like the oven just doesn't do that for me. So I went ahead and I cooked my meatballs. I cooked them on like each side for approximately 2 to 3 minutes and kept rotating them almost like a rotisserie chicken until they were fully done. I also cooked them on the sides as well, and just make sure that they were thoroughly cooked before removing them and plating them.
Y'all, it is almost midnight and I have to work in the morning. I am super pooped. I'm super tired. We've been in this kitchen tweaking at this point. But I went ahead and plated the meatballs with the cucumber salad. I'm not going to toast the pita bread until it's time to eat the meatballs with the pita bread. Also, the tzatziki sauce, I'll probably put it in a little container if I decide to have that for lunch at work. Otherwise, I'll just portion it out and put it on top with my food. Also, I personally like to take it out the meal prep bowl and plate it. So So I will definitely give you guys a view of it once I plate this item and show y'all what it looks like all together.
So I went ahead and I put my meatballs and cucumbers together, my cucumber salad together, and I put that in the refrigerator. And because I'll be eating this more than likely in the afternoon, I didn't portion out my tzatziki sauce or the onions that will go on top, but in a moment you will see how I plated it and how everything came together. I did toast my pita bread in the oven for about a minute or two on broil on each side, and then I spreaded my tzatziki sauce and I cut my meatballs into halves so it made it look like it was actually four there. And then I went ahead and put the cucumber salad on top, and after putting the cucumber salad on top, I went ahead and I added in my red onions. Now, how many red onions you want to use is personal preference. Personally, I love onions, so I did use a little bit more than the average person might use for this. But I also went ahead and put some feta cheese on top, and I literally just finished eating this before editing this video, and y'all, it was so freaking good. For my second meal prep option, I did Philly cheesesteak bowls. And y'all, these bowls were so good. I had one for lunch and I was literally at my desk like, yeah, I've been sleeping on this recipe for a long time and I should have been made it. The ingredients that's needed for this was listed previously. You can go back and pause the video to jot it down. The noodles that I personally used was the Banza Protein Noodles. I like penne, so I went with penne. I felt like that was the most appropriate noodles to pair with the Philly cheesesteak bowl. So I started off by just browning my meat. I personally don't like ground beef, so that's why I'm using ground turkey for both of these recipes, but it is really personal preference. You can either use ground turkey, ground chicken, ground beef or pork. It's really up to what you like. Personally, this is what I like, and me and my partner eats. We don't eat beef, so enough of me rambling about that. So I like to go ahead and brown my meat a little bit before going in with my seasonings. You don't see me season it. I don't know what happened to that part of the clip of me seasoning it, but it didn't record. But I'll go ahead and list off what I use for this. I use beef broth. I use I think 1 cup. Yes, I use 1 cup of beef broth. Now I do use beef broth even though I don't personally like beef. And then I also added in the Worcestershire and my green peppers. And for seasonings, I use Creole seasoning, garlic powder, pepper, and a little salt. And literally season that to taste.
Okay, babe, so I just finished prepping the meat, and the meat is ready, and I also did the noodles. I'm not going to put the cheese on to melt the cheese until it's time to warm up in the microwave, because I don't want to melt the cheese and then reheat it with the cheese melting again and then the cheese end up burning. But it's all up to personal preference if you want to go ahead and melt your cheese and put it on there, or you want to wait until you're actually about to eat the meal to put the cheese on it. But I am about to portion out the food, and honestly, portioning out my meals is the hardest part versus cooking them. Cooking them is easy, but the portions are what I struggle with. I use a scale, which I have the scale link below that I use. It's just a regular basic scale, nothing fancy about it. I use a bowl And I put my bowl on there, of course, and then reset the scale back to 0. A serving size for this will be 4 ounces of meat and 2 ounces of noodles. So I'm about to go ahead and portion that out into 4 ounces of meat and then do the noodles second. And I'll be back with you guys. I just finished portioning out the meat. I'm about to go ahead and do the protein noodles. And the serving for this is 2 ounces.
Here's the final look of the Philly cheesesteak bowls. I didn't melt my cheese simply because I don't want to melt my cheese twice. And I think I mentioned that in the previous real-time video of me talking about it. But this is the final look, and I also have a video of it plated. If you enjoyed this video, I hope that you subscribe. I would love to have you a part of my community, and I'll see you guys in the next video.